Welcome back, YouTube, to another BTNeanderthal video. Today we're going to be talking about the meta and like what we think of it so far after being on ladder and having about 7 days on ladder now for everybody been playing, and all the feedback that I've got from like the chat, from different people's streams, from all the forums and various things. I'm just going to be talking about some of that stuff quickly. I'm going to try to like condense it a bit from things that I've heard and things that I've seen tested, and hopefully after every single class here that I go over, you might have a better idea on what you might want to go for if you're starting out another character or starting out your first character on Project Diablo 2 ladder. So, the first things first, we're going to start from the left side of the character creation screen and go work our way all the way to the right. So that starts off with Amazon. Now Amazon, Mr. Llama in our group has been playing Amazon, and he has gone Jav and Spear skills. I believe he started off with like Poison and Power Strike and stuff like that. As far as what the actual meta is for everything, again, we don't have like a solid form. I'm just going by what we've heard and how that works. The skills that like I want to talk about here is, I believe Llama is using Lightning Strike. Now, Lightning Strike seems pretty good and definitely does a bunch of damage. The only problem with Lightning Strike is you have to actually like get close up to the enemy, and that can be dangerous if you're not wearing like a bunch of DR or survivability. So that's where Lightning Fury might come in. Lightning Fury seems to be decent as well. It's definitely not as OP as in vanilla, but yeah, I just want to mention those. The Jav and Spear skills kind of seem like it's the way to go for the Amazon as of right now. I think Physical's on might be a little bit later, but it could have some potential. Poison's on. There's some cool weapons to try it out. I haven't heard very much Poison's on feedback since ladder start, but I think there might be potential with different things, like maybe Gargoyle's Bite or something. So passive magic skills. I know that people have been using Valkyries, and that seems to be strong. They're pretty tanky, and they do a bunch of damage, it seems, as well. So that's good. Valkyrie's good. I feel like we should start, now that we've gone into maps, I feel like slow movement actually might be really helpful. One, because of archers, and two, just because like things coming up on us, it helps slow it down to give us time to prepare for the next fight incoming. Evade and dodge obviously are very, very good on the passive tree. As far as bow skills, I haven't really heard anything positive yet. Like overall, like solid, being like, oh, this is really good for bow. That doesn't mean it's not good. It just means that most people have gone Jav and Spear skills, I think, and I feel like the bow and crossbow skills section needs some more testing. I know that I saw Mr. Llama testing out physical bows on, and he wasn't too impressed, but like, to be fair, he was missing a few things like auras and like Might Aura, Concentration Aura, maybe possible enchants if you're running with an enchant sorceress or things like that. Like, it could have potential, like depending on your team and what your composition is looking like. Overall though, I haven't, like I said, I haven't heard very many good things about bow and crossbow skills. Again, doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad. So let's actually move over to the next character, which is going to be the assassin. Now, the assassin is actually kind of interesting. Like, from what I've heard, Mind Blast. So we'll start off with the first page here, actually. Martial arts, I think, could actually be an end game thing. When people start getting like crazy gear, you might be able to make martial arts work. Obviously, Dragonflight is super helpful for utility, and you could actually put point into that just for, teleporting around and stuff like that on top of monsters to move here and there. Again, utility skill, but it does cost you 4 points. As far as Shadow Disciplines, The Psychic Hammer, you know, Shadow Mastery, Mind Blast setup, right? We have, you know, this build, right? Ultimately, from what I've heard, the Mind Blast is actually really, really good in solo play. It might be fine in group play, but as far as I know, like, traps are actually better in group play from what I've heard, depending on your team composition, because with traps, if you're running a Conviction Pally and a Salvation Pally in your group, the lightning traps, for example, are going to be benefiting from all that stuff, versus if you're running a Mind Blast Assassin, you're going to need things like amp damage, and that's pretty much, like, there's not very much you can do to boost up your damage, so it's a very good solo grinding, like, build from what I've heard, so it seems pretty good. Burst of speed and fade, weapon block, all obviously all good things. But I'm not going to be talking so much about all the different skills. I already kind of went over that in a previous video. I'm basically just talking about the metas that I've heard. So Mind Blast Assassin build seems like it's very, very strong, and it's very popular right now with the Assassin. Now, talking about traps, fire traps seem to still be good as far as like leveling up goes, but I haven't seen very much endgame trap assassin for fire, that is. Lightning traps still seems like it's the go-to. I honestly haven't heard anything about like the physical, like Blade Sentinel, Blade Fury, Blade Shield, anything like that. I haven't heard anything about that. Again, just because I haven't heard about it doesn't mean it's bad. You know, there's obviously trends. It's only, like I said, like 7 days in, so these trends are like, you know, someone does something and then another person sees it and they're like, hey, I want to do it, and kind of the word spreads. So just there's so many different builds to try, and I think more and more as time goes on, they're becoming apparent. But yeah, lightning traps, obviously. You could go chain lightning, or you could go regular lightning. It depends on your situation, you know, and what maps you might be running. If you want to go either one, it depends on if you're playing with a group or not. Like all these different things. So you could make the best decision that's good for you. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much covering the trap assassin. I will mention things about mercenaries, I guess. Going back to the Amazon real quick. You know, like, Vigor Merc can be good, I guess. And same thing with the Assassin. Vigor Merc is good. Classes that can't teleport generally, or teleport all the time, Vigor seems to be really useful to be able to keep movement speed going. Oh, I just closed the game down. That's okay. Alright, and then our next class is going to be Necromancer. Now, Necromancer... There's actually a decent amount of people playing Necromancer, but I haven't heard like a class that's like a build that has just been the best build. I have heard though, that the Summon Necromancer seems to be very strong. And like maybe not like in an 8-player game, but as far as like a solo casual playthrough or something like that, Summon Necromancer seems to be like a good go-to. It can do a bunch of content, and it's got options. Curse, so like, you know, when I say Summon Necromancer, I mean like skeletons. There's also Golem builds, and I haven't heard very many positive things about Golem builds. I know that people run it, but like, I haven't heard a lot of like overwhelming positive feedback on golems. Maybe it's fine, but yeah, that's all I want to say about that. Revives, you know, it's a synergy for Corpse Explosion and stuff like that, so that one's pretty good as well. Corpse Explosion, I think I've heard, like, if you play it right, yeah, so if you play Corpse Explosion right, like, instead of putting a bunch of points into Desecrate for its synergy, if you put 10 points into Curse Mastery and then start maxing out lower res, then you can get amp damage and you can get lower res, and that way you get like both the physical portion of damage and the fire portion of damage. You get curses for both of those, and I think it ends up being more damage down the line. So those are just some things I'd recommend again for Corpse Explosion Necromancer. I'm not sure if it's the best, but that's what I've heard a little bit of. Bone Spear rather is kind of like, again, I haven't heard very much of it. I've mostly heard things about the Summon Necromancer and like Curse Support Necro. Probably the most common thing I'm seeing right now is like a Necromancer with like a few summons, whether it be golems or like revives or skeletons, and then having like 2 to 3 curses for support, so that way you can jump in with a team and like really help out. And some of those helpful skills are amp damage and decrep, as well as lore resist, depending on the situation. So some other ones can actually be helpful too, but those are some of the bigger ones that I'm seeing most commonly right now. I'm feeling like dim vision in maps if you're coming across a archer pack could actually be really good. Potentially even confuse could actually be good on an archer pack. Maybe fighting each other. It could be good. So we'll see how that actually all plays out as time goes on, but like those are some suggestions I've seen. Poison Necromancer, I haven't heard good things about Poison overall in general. People are excited to play like Rabies Druid and stuff at the early ladder, but I haven't heard like how that's actually playing out right now that ladder is live and stuff. Guys, again, if you have like any information about like a certain build, like let us know, or let me know, or post in the comments. Like if you really think something's feeling good or solid, like it would be cool to know that, and so that people watching this video can like read the comments and see, you know, hey, this build is good, or you know, something that maybe I didn't cover, or something that becomes apparent like after this video is published, stuff like that. But yeah, curses, very, very strong. Summoning seems good, and that's kind of like the meta that I've seen so far with the Necromancer. Act 5 Merc with Might Aura is pretty strong, and you can just equip so much now on the Act 5 Merc. It's pretty cool. So, on to the next class. And that next class is going to be the Barbarian. This one's tricky, man. This one is tricky. So, like, kind of similar to, like, how it is in LOD. The Barbarian tends to be pretty item dependent. So, unless you're in a group, you may not want to start off as Barbarian, but if you have a group, then the Barbarian might be, I mean, it will be very strong for your group, just for things like battle orders and battle cry. But like, obviously, starting off with war cry, the main thing I've seen, and is pretty popular right now, is war cry. War cry is actually pretty good. It's got a bunch of synergies, and it's got a bunch of different routes that you could go for synergies on Warcry. So people can farm like Travancore with this, and then hork the bodies, get gold, get runes, things like that. Travancore is very good with that. Grim Ward, you know, you pop a Grim Ward for your team. Anybody doing like attack damage is benefiting from attack rating as well as damage. And then Battle Cry is like minus Fizz resist, and that's a very strong debuff to the enemies for your team to like clear them a little bit faster. Battle Command has been super strong. Putting the points into Battle Command is very good. Barbarian is a really good support class, at least as the start. And if you're going to be running solo, and you're going to be running in a group, then Warcries might be the way to go, at least for the start. Just so that way you have damage, and that way you have like some support. The masteries, obviously, this deals with combat, and depending on what you need, you might put points in here and there. Frenzy, so all these skills here, from what I've heard again, is like all the stuff is kind of item dependent. You got Frenzy, you got Double Throw, you got Whirlwind, and I haven't heard like anybody being like, wow, this is really good on the Barbarian. I think though, as time goes on and as like weeks go on, again, this is only like 7 days into ladder, I feel like that it will actually be a lot more prominent, like the barbarians, and there will be a lot more gear for them to wear, a lot more GGs, and they'll be running the combat skills more often. There are still people running these. I've heard double throw is okay, but like, you know, Warcries doesn't require attack rating. It synergizes with something in a support group, so Warcries is usually the way to go here. As far as a merc, you know, like Vigor is pretty good, like we were talking about. You could run something else as well if you wanted. Act 5 merc or Act 2 merc. Something that takes some heat for you as well, maybe. So, anyways. Next character will be the Paladin. And the Paladin is pretty much, from what I've heard so far, and people are going to be trying different things, for sure, like as time goes on. But overall, dude, the #1 skill in the Paladin right now is Holy Bolt. And then its synergies being Holy Nova. Like, the heal Paladin is so awesome for team group play. It's really, really good. So, but honestly, I haven't heard like bad things about the Paladin, dude. Like, it's just like, it's very helpful, it's very useful as a support character, and it does good damage. As far as like defensive auras go, like, you know, Salvation is typically what I see when people running in a group. It's just super helpful. It gives you elemental damage for your team, as well as all resist. Like, that stuff's very good. You can even run cleansing and different things like here. Defiance, you know, you could do Defiance, or you could just get a Merc with Defiance, because Defiance now has like damage reduction when it's active, so pretty helpful. Oh yeah, and people running solo that don't need Salvation or Conviction, that are running Holy Bolt, they want to put points into Redemption to keep their mana sustain going. So definitely look at that. Offensive auras, Conviction is just like, it's just so good for the group. If you're playing with a bunch of elemental characters, Conviction is really good. I think that a lot of these things are going to be experimented in week 2, or experimented with a lot more in week 2, but I've heard pretty good things about Holy Fire, Holy Freeze, and Holy Shock and Sanctuary. Not as much Sanctuary, but like the elemental ones. I'm not sure how Sanctuary plays out. Again, if anybody knows, let me know in the comments. Yeah, so that's pretty much that. All these things, like, you know, you could go Hammered In, or depending on what you want to go for a build. I think we're going to see more melee builds coming up soon, like I was saying. But as far as combat skills, again, Holy Bolt is just king right now. You get to do damage, and you get to heal your team. And then you also have the Holy Nova as its synergy, and that heals your team by quite a bit. Rocking Holy Shield, you know, Holy Shield's always good. Hammers, I haven't heard anybody really using hammers. There might be people doing it here and there, but like Holy Bolt is just, it's good. You get 2 birds with 1 stone, healing and damage. So Zeal, I've heard people like actually running through the game with Zeal and really liking it. Not saying that it's necessarily meta, but apparently it's been holding its own pretty well. And our Paladin, Phantom, is going to be running Vengeance very soon, I believe, and going to be trying this build out. So hopefully this build will be strong. The cool thing about this build is, if you look at the synergies, you have like Resist Fire, Cold, and Lightning. And then you also have like Salvation. So he's going to have all these maxed, right? And with that being said, you're going to have 85 all resist. Well, obviously except for poison. But 85 all resist. And that'll make you tanky against a lot of things for like elemental damage. So maybe like it could be good for declone, I'm not sure. And then he's probably going to run Salvation, because again it's a synergy, and you also get the elemental damage when running Salvation, so that's going to be good, I think. So but yeah, that's pretty much the Paladin. Maybe run like a Fanaticism Merc, maybe run a Vigor Merc, you know, something like that. I don't know. Might Aura Act 5, possibly Act 2. Like there's just actually a lot of good options for mercs now. And because they have like, you know, the extra slots here, the gloves, the belt, and the boots, they tend to be a lot more helpful, and they tend to be a lot tankier as well, so they don't die from like lame stuff typically. So on to the next character, which is the one I'm playing and I have the most experience with. I say that, but honestly, I still have no clue what's the best here. Um, Obviously, for people that have been watching my stream, and for people that have been watching a lot of different streams, the meta seems to be combustion. Not necessarily that that is the best, but it seems to be combustion. But first of all, we're going to be talking about the cold skills. Overall, people ask me if I can go hybrid, and I think you could go hybrid in the late game, but as far as like cold and fire hybrid, it's pretty tough in PD2 just because like overall your skill damage has been nerfed to make the game more difficult. And with that being said, you kind of need every single point that you can get with synergies. So with all that being said, it's hard to go hybrid, and maybe we'll see a lot more of that a little bit later when people get a bunch of gear and plus skills where the hybrid can kind of kick in. I haven't seen very many people run cold, but some people are doing it. I think it's probably good for solo play still, but as far as a team goes, like, I don't think that cold might be the way to go. I haven't seen very many enchant sorceresses or heard anything about that. I feel like, again, once like the melee classes start to come on and people get nice gear, then maybe we'll see more enchant sorceresses to help boost up the melee characters a bit more. So we'll see how that actually ends up going. But typically, as far as cold skills go, I either hear people playing with Frozen Orb or Blizzard. I don't hear very much of anything else in the cold skills. As far as lightning goes, people are running like Nova in like the early game, but I haven't heard very much for lightning skills overall. I feel like static is a very, very good support skill. I mean, you've seen me play probably on stream, and I have 20 points in the static for our teammates because we have a lightning Javazon and we have a light Trapson. So both of those guys, when I static them, are benefiting with my minus enemy lightning resist. So that's helpful. And then I put my extra points into like telekinesis because I have like an orb on swap with energy shield and stuff. So teleport is still strong. You just got to play around it a little bit better, a little bit smarter. But yeah, teleport is still strong. It's still good for sure. You can teleport Bale all the time. You can teleport this, teleport that. Again, you just got to be a little bit more careful, and you might want to tank up a bit more. Also, try to hit the 117 breakpoint. Again, I could tell more details a little bit because I played more Sorceress. I haven't really played many of the other classes, so I haven't tested everything. But like this is what I have been playing. I have been playing Sorceress, and I can say a few things about that. So, warmth is good for a 1 point pretty much always, just to get that extra mana regen. And yeah, so again, what we were talking about earlier on the fire skills, like combustion is just it's pretty good for solo farming. And it's also like good for group play, especially when your team has like conviction and salvation or lower res or all, like, you know, all that stuff is really good because then you can actually break some fire immunes and you actually do a bunch of damage to things that are not fire immune. So that's typically what I see here. I also see people playing Meteor, and Meteor, like, the number values were changed a bunch of times since I actually played it. I started off this ladder as Meteor, for those that remember, and it was pretty good for sure. It took a while to ramp up though. It was like not until like level 70 that it was actually good. I've also heard that people are running Firewall. I'm not sure how that actually is going, but people are talking about how Firewall is pretty good boss killer and does a decent amount of damage. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, that's kind of the meta. It seems like fire skills right now is pretty good. Maybe as more infinities come online, we'll see more lightning skills. Um, maybe chain lightning and lightning will be good, or nova or thunderstorm, stuff like that. So we'll see how it all turns out as time goes on. So let's go to the next sorceress or next class. Uh, One thing I'll mention though is um, maybe like definitely want an Act 2 Merc for the sorceress, just because like the way that the Act 2 Merc uh like pulls aggro and like fights, like Act 2 Merc is the way to go, I feel like. Unless you're feeling confident in another choice, but like that's the one I would recommend is Act 2 Merc. Alright, let's talk about the Druid. So our group has a Druid Kano. I believe right now he's like number 1 ladder. I'm number 2. Feels good. Feels good. But I'm right behind him. So he started off with Twister. Like, well, he started off with like fire first, like getting, the early game going through, and then he respec'd in like Nightmare, going to like wind and cold. Now, this build has a lot of utility to it. There's like CC, you're doing physical damage and cold damage, so that's pretty cool. The only thing is, it seems like the damage, it's really hard to get that snowball like damage. Basically what I mean is like hard to get the ball rolling, hard to get enough plus skills to feel like you're doing a big amount of damage. Similar to how like I feel cold skills on the sorceress might be. So it's a little bit hard to get it rolling. He just recently spec'd over to Volcano, and he's benefiting a lot more because we have Conviction Pally, lower res Necro, and we have like Salvation Pally running most of the time. So switching to Elemental was a big big increase in our DPS overall. The only thing about Volcano, dude, is it just blows up the freaking screen, dude. Like, you just can't see anything with Volcano, and then like Armageddon going on. Sometimes an occasional fissure and stuff. But yeah, I believe he went like a few points into Hurricane and Cyclone Armor and Twister to try to like, proc FHR or stun briefly. Just kind of as a utility. But yeah, so that's pretty much what I've heard as far as this goes. Then we have shapeshifting. So I get asked a lot, like, what's a good shapeshifting class? And ultimately, nobody's come back to me and said, like, this shapeshifting build is really feeling good. Again, doesn't mean that it's like bad, but like maybe as more items come online, we'll see like better shapeshifting. But we'll see how that all turns out. So I'm not going to cover too much with shapeshifting. I feel like rabies and cows could be good. Boss killing could be good with like feral rage or something. I don't really know, honestly. People haven't come back with too much data on that for me. Summon Druid, people like the playstyle from what I've heard about on the Summon Druid. So Oak Sage is just really helpful for a group. And like Grizzlies, honestly, I could see a Summon Druid running into map with like people, or maybe even without people, and just like throwing out Grizzlies to just, soak up damage, so that way you're not getting wrecked by like archer packs or this or that on maps. So overall, I think people actually really like the summoning Druid. I'm not sure it's the most damage, but people are enjoying it for sure. I'm not sure like if bear summons is better than wolf or vice versa. I've heard that people are liking poison creeper in the early game. That's just like, nothing too crazy on summoning, but people are enjoying the game. So yeah, come back with feedback if you have anything else you wanna say about the Druid overall. But yeah, again, I've only played basically Firestork this entire ladder, and then just been reading your guys' comments, reading what you guys tell me, watching my teammates. Basically, right now, what our team composition is, if you guys are curious, we have Llama running the Amazon with Lightning Javazon, and he's doing really good damage because of my static and because like Conviction from Pally. Then we have an assassin with the traps, the lightning traps. We already covered that earlier, and that is doing pretty good damage as well. They also have like Cloak of Shadows, so like if we're doing bail runs, then like they can cloak the throne room. Cloak is very helpful. Um, and then we have Curse Necro. Dude, you can't run efficiently without a Curse Necro. Curse Necro is like so good for the group, especially when you're running elemental damage. You know, so Curse Necro, highly recommend that. And then whether you want to go summoning or not, you know, that's up to you. Maybe have some dudes to soak up some damage so you don't get insta-wrecked or something. Barbarian, obviously, like I was talking about, our Barbarian is, you know, Warcries right now, kind of doing what we covered with like Horking Trav when he can, and then like, you know, BOing and stuff like that. Warcries is, it seems like it's pretty good. And that's what he's running right now. And then we have the Paladins. We actually have two Paladins now. We have the Holy Bolt. They're both Holy Bolt right now. One of them is going to be respecing to Vengeance, like I was saying. But, like, they're both Holy Bolt right now. One is spec'd with Salvation. The other one's spec'd with Conviction. And they're both just healing. And heals feel really, really good from them. Then we have myself, the Sorceress, running Combustion. And I'm benefiting from the lower res, Conviction, and Salvation. So my damage ends up being really, really good if we get close to monsters as a group together. So, then we have the Druid, which I talked about just a few minutes ago. That's Kano, and he has been running like Elemental Druid the entire time. Switched from Wind over to Fire, and ultimately I feel like Fire is the more go-to here. So it's kind of cool that Project Diablo 2 has like the way that resistances work and the way that like breaking immunities and things like that works. It allows like other builds like Fire to actually be useful if you have a team that's working together to break immunities. So that's pretty cool. That's kind of an overview of like everything I know as far as the meta goes for skill builds. Just really quickly, like maps have been constantly tweaked as of recently, and the most recent patch which we've been trying today has actually brought a lot of good changes. Like the XP in maps is better than bail runs if you're an organized group. It doesn't make bail runs irrelevant. So if you can't quite get into maps yet and you still want to run bail runs, you can know that like you won't be getting as much loot for sure, but like you can know your experience gain is actually going to be still good, even when comparing against maps, as long as it requires a team to really do maps well and to try to make it like go better than bail XP. So that's basically what I'm saying. Is the LOD vanilla content is still relevant for sure, like magic finding and XP farming and stuff like that. But maps are kind of like this additional thing that if you get a nice group going and good organization, then that has potential to be a lot better. So not like by a huge margin, but like a decent margin for sure. Anyways, hope you enjoyed all this information. This was kind of like an info dump. If you made it to the end, say beast in the comments. I'd appreciate that. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Much love. I'm sure I'll be streaming a lot more on our grind to 99. And yeah, you guys are beasts.